Okie doke. So let's start by working on a sitemap and building, before you place the content into your website, build just a shell so you have your basic pages. Okay? And it's really a sitemap. If you ever go to a website and they say, here's our sitemap, it's really kind of like a flow chart. Okay? And at the top of that flow chart is your index page. Index.htm or index.html. So that's the file name. The page name that we'll get to can be named pretty much whatever you want. And that's what shows up in the browser. But the file name is always the first page that loads. Okay, so this is always your splash page, home page, whatever you want to call it. The first page that loads, the file name has to be index.htm. That's what it looks for. And it's this page that connects to everything else. So when I was talking about the last couple of times the rules or some basic guidelines for web design to make sure that your logo or your headline and your links and that sort of thing, any kind of navigation buttons and stuff take up a minimal amount, and that there's definitely no scrolling left and right, and that maybe minimal scrolling on the first page. 10 seconds tops, download time, that sort of thing is really critical, because this is what grabs people's attention right here. So don't worry about putting too much content here. Make this, at least for yourself, or if it's for a company or if it's for your cat or whatever, this is going to grab people's attention. This is going to draw them in and want to see more. Okay? Okay, this breaks down typically to other pages now. That if you have your links here, or you have some navigation buttons here, okay, or they could be on the right, or they could be along the top. You know, the design choice is up to you. And I would encourage you to look at as many websites as you can, save those links, and refer to them to give you a guide as to how to lay things out. Use them as inspiration. So we already have this page. This is what we created the other day, and we uploaded it. Now we're going to, on the fly, and it's a really neat way of doing it in Dreamweaver, we're going to go ahead and create 4 or 5 other pages. And as we create them, we will add links so that you can go from this page to this page, or this page to this page, or this page back to this page, and so on and so forth. And then we can, when we get to that point today, then we can go ahead and we can start to add content. Okay? So that's something that everybody needs to be thinking about. So this is moving in a slightly different direction. You know, decide what content you're going to have for your home page. So this is the content that we need to think about. If this is a personal website, are you going to have a bio? Are you going to have a resume? So each of these could be separate pages. Are you going to have samples of your work? Okay, right there's 4 pages. And depending on how, if it's going to be samples of your work, maybe it's samples, it depends on what you've done. Maybe you have a page dedicated to painting, a page dedicated to drawing, a page dedicated to 3D modeling, a page dedicated to other 2D computer graphics. Who knows? It depends on what you're doing. Okay? So that would be a good example of a very basic website. And so what I need all of you to do is I'm explaining and showing you how to build this website. I need all of you to get the content. And a bio, whatever text you're going to incorporate could be in a Word document. It could be in simple text. It doesn't matter. You need to get that. If you don't know what to put for yourself, then maybe redesign a site for a company or design a website for your dog or cat or something, you know, and think it might, sometimes it's easier to think about other people rather than yourself. I think personal websites myself are a great way to start. In this day and age, you have to be able to represent yourself on the web, especially in this business, but even in related businesses. They want to see, okay, aside from your telephone number, what's your email address? And then if you give somebody a card, you know, it's like, well, here's my website. Go to my website, and so they can find out more about you, or they can, I don't know. It's easier for them to be able to contact you. But definitely in the art business, you have to have a digital portfolio, as well as maybe one that you can carry in and show people. And that digital one is your website. Okay? So has everybody been, I hope, been thinking about what kind of website you want to do so that you can begin to collect that? Well, what we're going to do now is this is our home page, and we're going to create at least 3, maybe 4. So this might be a contact page or something like that. If it's about a company, you could have an about page or about us. Okay, so you know the list can go on and on. And if there are subdivisions of this, meaning if we had sample pages under here, then that's how this inverted tree could spread out. So for example, let's start with, here's our home page, and we could go ahead along here, and we could have, here's another page. This could be the bio page. Another page would come down here. So this would be, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. This would be the resume page. This one could be the samples page. And this one could be the contact page. And what this chart represents is how they are related to one another and how they are linked to one another. They're separate individual pages, but they are linked to one another by this diagram. Okay, this is the head one. This is the one that they see first. And from this one, you can go to any one of these. Then once you're on any one of these, each one of these would also have, depending on how you lay this out, you would have links. So you could get back to the home page, or you could get back to any one of these. So really on a small website, within 1, 2 clicks, you can get to wherever you want. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, if you have multiple sample pages, this could also branch out too. This could come down here, and this could branch like so that you could have additional pages here. And you can see how the thing spreads out. And you know, think about it when you go to a Wikipedia site or you go to Amazon or something. Those are incredibly complex. Just the flow chart has to be. You've got to have a bottle of aspirin with you, you know, or something, you know, to figure it all out. The one website that I have on the student samples, the one that it's the astrologer. The lady that I had a while back was an astrologer. She printed out her flow chart, and it was incredibly complicated. It was really nicely done, really, really nicely done. So this could be, you know, sample page 1, 2, you know, 3, and 4. Now you do not have to build yours out, but I'm just explaining the structure to you. You just need the basic 4 or 5 pages for your website. And again, you know, to review a couple of basic points, make sure, you know, think of consistency. So the background colors that you use are consistent, the type that you use is consistent, the location, the look of the navigation buttons are consistent. If you have a logo, you know, the logo looks consistent from page to page. So that when people are different pages on your website, they can tell this is, you know, this is where I am. You know, I'm in this website. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take from this and we're going to build these empty pages and on the fly create links from one to the other. So that these will be basic placeholders. into which we can place our content. And if we don't like these links, we can place navigation buttons, or we can just simply use these links at the bottom as a secondary navigation choice. Remember I talked the other day that if you choose to use flash buttons or you use images for buttons, or links to other pages, then people who are seeing impaired will need just text links at the bottom. That would be really helpful. So on all of these pages, you probably should have text links. And usually they are just placed at the bottom like so. Okay? So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to build it so it'd be helpful for you to watch me, and then we'll see how far you guys get, and then I will continue and we'll cover some basics as to how you insert text, how you insert images, how you add alt tags, what are alt tags, things like that. Later on, after the site is built or it's on its way, some of the things that we're going to do too are add something like keywords, okay? Description of your website, and what those things do is they aid search engines in finding you. I don't quite understand, to be quite honest, I'm going off on a tangent now, but how sometimes the search engines work myself. That there was a time, has anybody Googled themselves and seen, do a vanity search to see if you can find yourself? Okay, well, for a while when I did a Google and I put in Kirk Miller, I mean there's lots of Kirk Millers in the United States. There's also another Kirk Miller in Tustin who's an artist who has his art studio, and that was the one I think you found the other day. Somebody did. And friends of mine have gone in there thinking it was me. So he, anyway, he does pretty traditional stuff like portraits and flowers. He likes to paint flowers, still lifes, and things like that. Anyway, I found myself occasionally, depending on the activity on my website, I could be on the first page and I'd maybe be 6 down or something like that, or 8. And then I bought, when I started the blog with TypePad, I also added something through Google called Adsense. And if a lot of people click on your page and click on these ads, it's supposed to generate revenue for you. As soon as I did that, I dropped off. I couldn't find myself. I went, I don't know how many pages down and couldn't find where it was. So I think Google, if you do incorporate AdSense into your website, then they tinker with the listing, because if you come out on top and people continually click you, then that means they got to pay you. So I have the feeling that they intentionally push you down at the bottom as soon as you sign up for things like that. Anyway, something to think about. Okay, so I'm going to pull this down. Let's get this going. Turn off the lights. You don't have to follow along with me, but I do want you, it would be helpful if you had Dreamweaver open so you can see what I'm doing here and where these things are located. What I want to do first is I want to open up my index page. Okay, this is the one that I created yesterday, or Tuesday rather. And what I also want to see on the palettes over here, or menu, or palettes, I guess that's what I call them, I want to see the local files. And you'll see this is my root folder, site Lauren Miller 2. And I have a folder for images. Here's my index page, and here's the STE file, which is all the information about my site. I should probably also go to Site, Manage Sites, and make sure that my site is this current site is listed. And now what I want to do is I want to add pages and I want to link them to one another. So I have a shell of a website. Well, they provided for us a really nifty tool. If you see this little button right here, you see where my mouse is? It says expand to show local and remote sites. That's what I need to click right here, and watch what happens when it opens up. When I click the little button here, it says connects to remote host, I can see what's on the remote server, and I can see also side by side how my local files compare to what's uploaded on the server. So if I were to click here, not if, I'll go ahead and click here and we'll compare. And you'll see that I have lots more files that I have left from last semester. So this now no longer matches that. That's okay. But as you're building your website, this should pretty closely match one another. But what you see locally, you also need to have uploaded here. I obviously can download all of this and bring it in here, or I can remove all of this and start over again. For today, I'm just going to leave this alone. What I want to see, though, so this will be useful. So as you're building your site, I can take local files and I can drag them over here to the remote site, or I can take files from the remote site and I can drag them over here and download them so that they're now on my computer locally. That's pretty nice. So you have a nice visual. But this is the button that I want to see right here. It says Site Map. See where my mouse is pointing? When I click here, you can see I have one page. This is my index page. Now what I also want to see, and this is where I'm going to screw up here. Hold on here. Let me open this a little bit like so. Let's click here. I want to show site files. No. Sorry about that. Let me go back. Let me go back to my map. View, site map. Okay, let me go back to site map. That's what I wanted to see. I don't know why this was hidden, but it was. I wanted the local files over here. So if you don't see this, and let me know. So they're no longer here, they're here. Okay. So again, I have my index file, I have my STE file, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a bunch more files here. And to do that, I can right-click or control-click on this particular folder. It's my root folder. And you'll notice that I can create new folders here. I can also edit pieces from here. I can also create a new file from here, and that's what I want to do. On the fly, I can create new files and I can link them to one another very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file here, and it's untitled, and it adds the extension HTML. You have to leave that. Now I can come in here, and let's name this one my About page. Remember, all the rules for naming files that I've talked about so far with images, they apply to this. So these are the file names here that have to be named properly, or they will not upload. If you have spaces between words, if you start them with capital letters, things like that, you'll run into problems. So I'm going to go ahead and on the fly, I'm going to build all those pages. I'll do one samples, I'll do one resume, I'll do one whatever. Contact page, so I have a whole bunch of them. So I'm going to right click again or control click, new file, creates a brand new one here. While the name is highlighted, this one will be resume. Right click again, new file. This one will be samples. What you name your pages is totally up to you. Okay, it will depend on the content. Right click again or control click, again new file, and this one will be contact. Okay, now the thing is, let me go ahead and close this file. Let's come back here. If I double click on this file or any file in here, let's click on one of these other files. Let's click on the About file. This is an actual document that exists now. But it's just what you might think. It's a blank page. You need links, you need titles, you need information to be able to go from one page to another. Okay, so how do we do that? And what Dreamweaver does is it offers on the fly a very easy way to link from one to the other. So this is where I need everybody to look up here, because it's easy to get lost. I'm going to select my index page. Notice the little target here. And this is a way of creating links on the fly. So what I can do is I can click on here and drag it to the About page. I have now created a link to that page. I can now select again from here, and we'll go from About to Resume. And then I'll go from there to Samples. And then I'll go to the last one, Contact. Now when I open this page, you can see I have all of my links here to those pages. And if I want, later on I will reformat these. I'll go ahead and center it so it's in the center, and I'll save it. Okay, now what I will do is I'm going to reverse that order. Because I can go, if I open my About page, it's still blank. So I can go to my About page, but how do I go from my About page back to Home or the others? I have to put links on those pages as well. So that's what I'm going to do now. So now I'm going to take down here, and I'm going to select the About page, and I'm going to go in the reverse order. You don't need to go to yourself. You don't need to go to yourself. When you're on the home page, you don't need a home page link. You're already there. On my About page, I don't need an About page link. I am there. But I do need links to Index. I need links to Resume, Samples, and Contact. Okay? So now what I'll do is I'll click, and the first one that I'm going to have is going to be to my Index page. And there we go. It has a link to that. And then I'll go back. In the same order, I'll go to Resume. And if it isn't in the same order, you can always cut and paste and reorder them. But I think to keep things sane for yourself, it's important that you be consistent and try to work in an even, steady, flow. Let's see, Resume, let's go back, let's go to Samples, and then let's go to Contact. So let's go ahead and open up the About page again. And there they are. So now I can go back. But you'll notice that there's no title, there's no heading on here, there's no nothing. So I don't know which page is which. So let me get all of them linked first, and then I'll open each page. It tells me up here that the HTML file, this is About, so I probably should begin to, when I'm done linking each one, then I'll go back in and I'll put a little label at the top so I know which one is which, and maybe change the colors so that they're the same, they're consistent, and gradually begin to build and treat each one individually, but also look at them as a whole so that they look uniform and consistent. Okay, so let me go ahead and close that. And I'm going to repeat that now for each one of these. So again, the first one I want to go to from Resume now is I want to go back to my Index page. And now I want to be able to go to About. And I want to be able to go to Samples. Samples. And I want to be able to go to Contact. So on the fly here, I'm building a whole site. It's a very, very, very nice feature. Let's go again from Samples, and I'm going to again first go to Index, then About, Resume, and then Contact. So Index, about, resume, and then contact. And now the last page, again, repeat the same feature. I'm going to first go to index because I want to be able to go home first, then go to the about page, then go to the resume page, then go to the samples page. Okay, so I have built the shell of a website. Let's go to the about page first. And I will, at the top, where the title of the page is, this is not part of your file name, so it doesn't adhere to those naming rules. I can use capital letters, I can use spaces, I can use whatever I want. I'm going to go ahead and move this down a bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go ahead and center it. And then at the top here, I'll center. And I already have built a style from the first page. So I'm going to look here. Actually, I didn't. I did build one, but I did not export it. So I'm just going to, using paragraph type, maybe I'll use Verdana and make it bold so I can see it. And the size, how about 24 points, so I'm consistent with all of these. This will be my about page. Okay, so I have my links, I have that, and then I can begin to insert images, I can insert text, and on another day when I show you how to use tables or layers or things to organize your content, we can do so. But as it is right now, you have limits as to how you can format your text. But at the moment, it sort of works like a desktop publishing program or a Word program that you just simply click anywhere on the page and you start typing. It may not be formatted the way you like, but that's how you can add text or content. Something else that I haven't shown you too that is nice, that right now we're just looking in design mode. This is representation of what it's going to look like when it's in the browser. Okay? We don't see how it works underneath, but we can. You'll notice at the top of each of these pages we have the title, and we can upload or download, or we can connect to the preview in a browser right now, or we can refresh, or we can do all sorts of things from over here. What do these do? If you're interested, or if you've had any experience with HTML, this is what it is. This is the HTML. If you want, and this is what I will do often, especially if I'm running into a situation where I think I might have problems, I use split mode. And notice that when you highlight the text, you'll see here is the about that's highlighted here. I can edit it from the preview, or I can edit it from here. If I want it, let's say, just as a look, I want all of these to have lowercase. Okay. So you can edit it from the HTML, or I can edit it on the preview page. And I think the next thing that we need to do is make sure that as you make changes that you save them. You'll notice a little, and this is true in a number of applications, it is not unique to Dreamweaver. It was true in Flash, it's true in a number of programs, is that as soon as you make any revision or any change to a file, you'll see a little asterisk in the upper right hand corner of the file name. That lets you know that this file change has not been saved. Something has been changed. It could be very minor, but nonetheless it lets you know that a change has been made that need to save it. So now when I hit Command S, it saves it and it updates it, and I'm ready to go. So now let's go back again. Let's look at my root folder. That was the About page. Let's go again. I don't have to open them in order. I guess I could. Let's go to the next one. Resume page. And again, I want this centered. And I'm going to go, I said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then at the top here, let me make sure that I'm formatting this the same from page to page. So let's go to resume. Let's up here. Let's make sure that it's centered. Remember I said I was using, we're not going to have to format everything from page to page as soon as we get to cascading style sheets. I'll leave this paragraph and I will switch from default. And the default font, by the way, as I'm coming across this stuff, I need to talk about it and add it, is not the default font for your computer. It's whatever the end user's default font is. So you need to be careful when you use that. For somebody at the other end, if their default font is Times Roman, then that's what it's going to insert. If it's Verdana or it's a sans serif typeface, then that's what it's going to insert. So I would recommend that you don't use this unless the visual is unimportant to you. For myself, I am really partial to Verdana, that it reads really nicely. It's a nice clean font. But you'll notice that it really doesn't matter. We don't have a whole lot of options here. And if you'll notice that there are categories, like Arial, Helvetica, sans serif. What that means is that, actually, Arial is a bastardization of Helvetica. Somebody did a knockoff on it and called it Arial, and it looks close to Helvetica, which is a sans serif typeface. So what it's going to do is if you do select Arial, it's going to look for Arial first or Helvetica. If it doesn't find either one of those on the end user's computer, then it will substitute a sans serif typeface. Similarly, if you select the serif typeface, it's going to first look for Times New Roman or Times. And if it doesn't find either one of those on the end user's web or computer, it will just simply pick a serif typeface, and so on and so forth for each of these basic categories. Okay, so I'm selecting, remember I said we don't have a style because I haven't exported the styles yet. Size, I said I was going to use 24. I'm going to use bold, and we'll type here resume. Okay, and at the top I will write resume. And I'll save the change. Okay. Let's go back to our files again. Let's open the sample, and I'm going to repeat the same thing for each one of these now so that they all look consistent. Now, go ahead and move it to the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Move up in here. Paragraph is fine. I'm going to go ahead and select Verdana again so we're consistent. Size is going to be 24 point. Make sure it's bold. And we're going to type samples. And up here in the title, I'm going to type samples. Okay. And make sure that it's saved. And I have one more to go. And we'll select contact. And again, I'll center it. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll come up here and use Verdana as my typeface. I'm going to use 24 point. I'm going to select bold, and I'll type contact. And up here, I will type contact. And I'm going to save. So they're all saved except resume. I guess I didn't save resume. It's all saved. Is contact saved? Now it's all saved. I think everything is good to go. So if I want, now it's a good time to test it locally. If I want to throw the whole thing up and leave blank pages, I would. You can. What I'm going to do is start by opening up my index page, which is already open, and I'm going to preview in the browser. So I can either do that from here, remember, or I could go to File, Preview in Browser, and I'll select Firefox. It should load it up. And this will give me a pretty good idea what it's going to look like locally. And now if I want to, I can go to my About page, and there it is. There's my About page. And from here, let's go back to Index to make sure that it works. And let's go to the Resume page, and then let's go back to Index. Let's go to the Samples page, and let's go back to Index. Let's go to Contact page, and let's go back to Index. So the whole thing now works, and you do have to test it. Now let's go to the About page, and from the About page, let's go now to the Resume page. And from the Resume page, let's go back to the About page, and then let's go back to the Samples, and then let's go back to About, let's go to Contact and About. So you're testing each one. And remember, for each page that you add, think of it, it grows geometrically, basically. You know, you have lots of combinations that you have to test to make sure that they all work. You'll also notice, remember how I named in the title page, About? See where it's named now? It's up here, capital A-B-O-U-T. This is where it's displayed in the browser. Now I can start to add additional content. I can type in additional text. I can paste in additional text. I can add images. I can do what I want with this. I can bring in an SWF file. I can change the background color to make sure it matches, which isn't a bad idea. And I could go back and I can change the color of all of these, you know, to make sure that they're consistent. Yeah.
When you name a file, like a new file, you have to put .html.
Yes. And another thing that you need to be aware of, did everybody hear that? When you name a file, and Dreamweaver will automatically add the extension .html. But if you don't, it won't know to read it as an HTML file. It has to be there. And you do have to use all the naming systems that we've talked about, that you can't start with a capital letter. No spaces between words. If you do want spaces, use an underscore. If you want to use camel backing, you can, so that in the middle there's capital letters with no spaces. You can end the title or the name with a numeral, but you can't start it with a numeral. And you'll discover, lo and behold, you know, it's easy to get into when you name files for Word documents or for whatever you use, you get into a habit of naming things a certain way. And if you do start with a capital letter and then you go to throw up all the pages to load them on the server, you'll notice that some of them don't load. There's something wrong. Why isn't this working? It looks fine here locally, but I can't see it remote. It doesn't work. And there's probably something as simple as that that is causing the problem. It's just been named incorrectly. That's one of the common problems that occurs. Okay. So I'm going to take notice that I have, and it's not a big deal, these are called div tags here, or divs, not tags, just divs. If I want, since I already had one div and another, I can go ahead and, remember the other day, this was a little bit, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Go back and remove a couple of lines. I can also cut and paste. I can cut from here, Command X to cut, and I can go ahead and click the cursor here and hit return. I can paste, and it pastes all of those back in there. So all the rules of copy, cut, paste work in here. Okay. And this div is a container for all of this, basically. And when we get to layout, there are different ways that you can lay out your document. And I have some lynda.com videos that we can watch too that are very helpful to show you different ways of laying out. Right now we're just doing a very, very basic layout. It would be like opening Word or Pages on the Mac or something and saying I want a blank page. I want a very simple layout for all this. But now when you start adding images and your SWF, you know, Flash document, and you're adding links, you know, buttons and that sort of thing, and you want to, you know, put them here, there, and everywhere, you know, and arrange them like you do in an InDesign document or in Photoshop or something, it doesn't work so well. Because right now we just have these very, strict limits as to flush left, centered, flush right, or justified. That doesn't help us a whole lot. You can't move things around the way you think you would like. Okay. This is, I won't say, what I have done so far is I have only changed the content locally. If I were to go up to my website, so not if, let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and click on a browser here. I thought I had Firefox open. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and click Safari. And I type in my URL. So this was Laurent-Miller.tripod.com. Oh, I have www. Remember, that doesn't work. I'm glad that happened, because I don't have, that's not what we signed up for. So I need to remove that. It doesn't recognize that. But now when I put that in there, it does. And now you're going to be asking yourself, well, let's refresh, because this might be in cache. And wait a minute, where are my links? I put all that in there. Where do you think they are? It's all local. I have not uploaded it yet. So everything that I generated was local. What I need to do now is you test it locally, test it in a number of browsers, make sure everything works, you know, and then now you're ready to upload it. So what I can do now, if I'm happy with it, we can switch, and why not? You know, this is a good lesson. Let's switch from here. And let's go to, I want to look, instead of sitemap, I'm just going to look at, I don't want to see map and files. What do I want to do? Nope, I don't want to see that either. What am I doing here? Let me close this for a minute. Come on, there we go. And let me open this again. And I didn't want that. What do I want here? Just site, there we go. I just wanted site files. Thank you very much. So now what I can do is I can link here so that I'm connecting to the server. And what I'm going to do, and I recommend you don't do this at the moment. There's a private folder in here. There's a CGI bin. There's a number of things in here. And I'm going to just delete some of these, just so I'm starting fresh for you guys so that I don't have anything from before. I'm going to go ahead and remove my old index file. I'm going to remove the old resume file. I'm going to remove the old samples file. The STE shouldn't even be there. It doesn't, it should be just a local file. It doesn't do anything. And here's a ping file that I have from the deck. So this is pretty much a clean slate. What you should see, however, I'm going to go ahead and drag this index file over, and now it's uploaded it. So that is there. Now if I were to go back here and I were to reload this, notice it has the new version. Okay, but if I click on About, I'm going to get an error message, because it's looking for that file, and I have not uploaded it yet, so it doesn't know what to do with it. And that's okay. So now what we can do is we can drag these over one by one, and I can take each one of these files. I can take the About file, and I can drag it in this top folder, and notice a little plus sign indicates that it's going to add it, it's going to copy it. Or I can simply select my site folder, and I can select the Put button up here, and it will take and it will ask you, do you want to upload the entire site? And for right now, it's not a bad idea. Click OK. And if you recall the other day when you were doing this for the first time, this little box asks you, do you wish to include dependent files? Right now I have no dependent files. But as soon as I add images, as soon as I add Flash, as soon as I add Flash buttons, as soon as I do add whatever, those are dependent files that are just like any other file that you'd have is linked to that document. It's not embedded in the document. So I always click yes and then do not show again. So anytime I upload something or upload a page, it automatically takes everything with it that it's supposed to have, so that I don't by accident forget. Because when you're done, there could be little blank GIFs, there could be all kinds of little things, little files that you forget about, that maybe you've edited and you've changed or you've moved, and if it doesn't go with the document, it could wreak havoc when it's viewed in the browser later on. So now when I go back, notice everything is up, and it even included that STE file, and I really don't need that there. This is a local file. We can come back here, and now I can go to the resume page. See how it has resume? We can go back to the index, and you can test all of these, and notice that by default, the links as they're visited change color. The color of the links by default are this blue. Links are denoted by being underlined. Wonder why there's no ad down below. I'm not complaining. It's just that there was the other day, so maybe they've cut back or something. I don't know. So what I might do next is maybe make sure that the background color is consistent for all of them, collect content, and then what I need to show you how to do is to now insert images. Inserting text is pretty basic. Let's do one image just to show you how to do that. And that's really covering the basics right now. And then on next Tuesday, we'll move along to chapter 5, and we'll cover in detail how to do more complex layouts, how to have better control over a more complex design for yourself. Okay? And there are any number of ways to do that. For right now, this is a website. We're done. If that's as much content as you want. But we're going to do something a little bit more ambitious. Okay? So, what I wanted to do, make sure creating and saving new, I need to go over a few of these features myself. I talked about page titles. I have not put in an image yet. We did some inserting of some text. Aligning text and images is a little tricky. Again, you only have 3 choices at the moment, but one thing I haven't talked about are links. And you can link images, you can insert text and insert a link from there. So on my home page, let me insert an image, and then let me make that image a link. I can insert some additional text and turn that into a link. So far, all of the links that we have are relative links. Relative links mean that they are contained in my root folder, on the server. If I link to an external site, I need to put an absolute link, which means http:// whatever the URL is. You need to put the whole thing, whatever page is that I want to link to. That's an absolute. A relative is just the file name, and it will look for it in that local folder. And that's all we have so far. That's all we've needed. Does everybody understand that? That's really important. So for right now, I will demonstrate the difference. Right now I'm going to click right in the middle on this page, and I want to insert an image. So wherever you want the image to be inserted, you click the cursor, and I want it to be inserted right in the middle here. And I see, just like you see the little flashing cursor in Word or something, I see that there. Now, there's an image that I have on my desktop that's not on my root folder. It's not there in my image root folder. That's critical. Yes. Huh? You just click. And you see the little cursor here? It's a little black one. I'm just clicking on my page. See the little flashing cursor here? Wherever it flashes, just like a Word document, that's where it's going to insert text, or that's where it's going to insert an image. So let me, for example, leave it right here. I'll leave it right next to that Lauren's new website. Up here, okay, here's media, okay. Over here, images, click here. I want to insert an image. I can insert, remember the other day I selected an image placeholder, rollover image, a fireworks, navigation bar. There's all sorts of options for me. I just want a simple image. So what I'm going to do, I should have this in my root folder, but I want to show you that this is a somewhat smart program. I'm going to go onto the desktop, and you'll see that I have the Duck Dunes JPEG here. And I've forgotten what size this is. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and choose it and hope that everything is okay. And if it's not okay, then I'm going to need to fix it. What I should also add here, and I don't need the long description, but I should add an alt text here, or alt tag. And I'll call it duck image. Now, what does that mean? It's for a reader. It's someone who is seeing impaired and who does not see the image. The reader will read the alt text, and then it will show, as it goes across the page, here's an image of a duck, or here's a photo of a duck, or here is whatever. So to be Bobby compliant, that I talked about the other day, you really do need alt tags. And that's where it inserted it, right where I thought. It made everything centered. So now to move it down, I can't just simply click and move it. Well, I guess I can. I said I couldn't. Never mind. So I'm gonna hit the return key because I had additional spaces that I hit. It allowed me to put that in there. Now this is a good size. It's 300 by 250, and I guess we were saving for the web before. And I thought I saved it as a PNG file. I guess it's a JPEG. Well, it says JPEG down here. Notice under source, it tells me where it is. And that's kind of odd. It didn't show me. See, I need to look now. I need to look over here, and I need to be very careful. I'm going to look under assets, and you see under images here? It's not here. It's not in my root folder. So if I upload that, I have problems. Now, it should have noticed automatically that it was not there, and it didn't. I was trying to make this fail intentionally, and it didn't do such a hot job. So I'm going to show you the right way to make sure that this works now. I'm going to delete this. Delete it. There we go. Leave the cursor there. I'm going to go back here. And here's the duck, okay, here's the Duck Dunes JPEG. Here is Lauren Miller root folder. I'm going to click in here and hold in here. And here's my image folder, and I'm going to put it in there. Now, I guess it did put one in there. I don't know why it didn't. I want to replace it so that it's in there. Remember I said all of your images, all of your pages, all of your Flash documents, anything that's linked to your website needs to be in your root folder. So now let's go back. Once again, look at this page, and I'll insert it. And what I can also do, if I go back, why isn't it showing me that? I'm clicking on images here, and it should show assets. Here's the colors that I've used so far. Links, no external links, no movies. Huh. Let's make sure I have the right site. Manage sites, Lauren Miller 2. Done. So why aren't you there? Well, maybe because I haven't, it's in the root folder, but I haven't used it yet. So let's click once again. No, it should show it. Let's go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and insert it. I'm going to look in my root folder first. That's a safe place to go. Images, and here's the duck. Notice that I already named it correctly. It has the extension JPEG. Choose. We'll rename that so it's duck photo. Click and it inserts it. It has relative, it's in images, it's in duck dunes. Maybe I had that before. Okay. So now I've inserted the image, centered. What if I want this image to be a link? If I want this to link to another website, you can link text, you can link images, you can link all sorts of things. I could also specify, I could use an image map that maybe a little dot right here. This is going to be, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Let me move it over. This little hotspot is going to become a link. I could select the entire image as a link, or I could select a specific area. This hotspot here, or this image map, is similar to the what did I say it was? With a state in Flash, the last one. No. You have your normal, over, down, and your hit state. The hit state. This is equivalent to the hit state. That it's not visible, but it indicates the area. Now you'll notice here, I can link to a local, actually a part of, I could add an anchor and I could link it to the same page, drop down to a lower part of the page. I can link to another page in my website. I can look at pages here. Where are my pages? Come on, where are my assets? Why aren't you guys showing here? How about if let's refresh. There we go. That's why I didn't do that. So let's look at pages. Let's refresh. Come on, where are pages? Okay. Maybe because I have them out here. Let's go to Files, and let's close this. Okay, so here's my local files. I can link this to one of these pages. I can you can do this any number of ways. You can type in the local link it yourself. So if I wanted this to link to my samples page, I could just put samples.html and it's linked. I could also click on this and I could drag and I could link it to my samples page, just like the other one. That's just pretty nifty. Again, for us who are typing impaired, who make mistakes. And the other one is if it's located someplace else, you can click on the folder. And now I can click on images and I can select, this would be to itself. Or I could link to another file here, to the resume page or whatever I want. So that's if it's local. If it's remote, then you have to put the absolute. So what if I want to link to my personal website? So then I would have to put http://www.kmart66.com. Okay, and then I have to specify target. Remember the rule that I talked about? If it's contained within your website, let it replace the existing page. If you're linking to an external site, then what you should select here is blank, so that when it clicks, it opens up a brand new window, so that the end user gets a visual cue that they've gone someplace else. Okay, so let's save all of this, so that this little thing goes away, the little asterisk. Let's go ahead and test it. Preview in Firefox. And notice that when I move over that, see the little hot spot, and when I click, it loads a new window and it sends me to my website. So as we go, as you're adding elements, as you're adding text, as you're adding images, as you're adding links, you want to preview locally, test it to make sure that it works, and then if you're happy with it, then go ahead and upload that and make your changes. I would not, if it doesn't work locally, if it doesn't work when you test it, then I would not upload it, because then that you're risking chance of somebody else going to your website and not having a very friendly experience. There are a number of other rules that we need to touch on from time to time that, for example, some people don't like the idea of, you know, if there's nothing on your website that people put under construction, just leave it blank. Just, okay, that's all there is, you know, and then leave it at that, or just don't put anything up. And that's not a bad way to go. That was just one of the things that I wanted to talk about. Do you guys have any questions so far? No? It seemed pretty straightforward? This is what I wanted to cover today. So these are just the basics. And I feel like I haven't covered a lot, but I have. I mean, there's a lot that you can create. A shell of a website has no content, but now they can link to one another. So I have all my links. I mean, I can also go back and let me just do one little thing here. Just one more thing. That's what Steve Jobs always says. One more thing. So let's add one more thing. What if I wanted to put underneath Lauren's new website that I wanted my row of buttons there? I could have my buttons here. I could have them over here. I could have them under here. Because I don't have tables or anything, to put them over to the left isn't going to be very easy for me right now. So I'm going to hit the return key. Also, regarding spacing between lines, you have two options. If you hit the return key, it's a paragraph break. If you hold down the shift key and you hit return, it is it's a line break, and that's it for the difference in spacing. You have a little bit more control, a lot more control when you use cascading style sheets, but with this, there just isn't much. It isn't like working in Illustrator or Photoshop or InDesign where you can control the leading, you know, to the nth degree. It doesn't work quite like that. Let's see, under media, let's go ahead and add a flash button. And there's because Dreamweaver was made by Macromedia, now Adobe, they, in a version or two ago, began to integrate Flash into Dreamweaver. And there are some preset buttons in here, which are pretty cool. You know, they're not, when you look at them, there are some are fancy, some are ugly, some are, you know, some are pretty nice. And all of these are rollover buttons. They all are pretty fancy. Control buttons here, reverse. We've got corporate looking little spinner. Just for the heck of it. Which one do I want? I'm going to go back. I'm going to go ahead and add this one, beveled rectangular bronze. Okay? And I'm going to go ahead and link this to my About page. Notice that it has the font size and the font, because this is Flash. I can use whatever font I want because it's going to be an image of the text. It's not editable. And that's what distinguishes this from the links at the bottom of the page. So I can pick whatever font I want. Whatever fonts are loaded on my website, I can choose. I can choose the type size from here in points. Link, I can either browse or I can just type in About. So this is going to be to my About page. And remember, it's about.html. Target, just leave it blank because it will be self. Background color, by default it chooses white, but I want it to match the background that I've chosen here, don't I? So I click on here, and then I move my eyedropper over here, and I click, and it picks that, so that it now becomes continuous and invisible with the rest of it. We're going to name this one our About button, SWF, and it is a flash file. And I click Apply, and it's generating it. And I click OK, and I can put the title in here for accessibility, and I will name it About Button. I'll click OK, and I goofed. It didn't put any text in here. Oh, because I didn't put the button text. I need it here. I need About, B-O-U-T. OK. Apply. There we go. OK. OK. So I'll go ahead and remove this from here. Now I can put a whole row of buttons up there so that these might look a little bit nicer, but if someone is seeing impaired, they have these links as well down here. So let's go ahead and save it. We'll test it again. Let's go ahead and browse preview in Firefox. And I can go here, and it takes me to my About button. OK? Yeah. No, that's why I'm doing it this way. If I go here, this is getting pretty cluttered. If I try to take this and move it over here, it doesn't work. I mean, then I can click here, maybe, and I can put some, it won't allow me to put any space. If I can hold down the Shift key, and it just doesn't work. That's not how HTML works. So I was very, I'm doing this a specific way, and on another day, when we introduce tables or we introduce layout mode, I'll show you how we can create additional divs, or we can create tables that allow you to move things around and put them in a more elegant way, I guess it is. Right now I just have everything aligned centered, which is pretty boring. But if you need just a very simple website, and that's okay for you, then that's okay. Notice as I'm adding information to, I've gone up to 4 seconds. I haven't added much, but I have 6 seconds to go. So add a few more buttons, and if I added an image instead of the Lauren's new website at the top, I did something fancy in Photoshop. Before you know it, you've used up your 10 seconds. So what I encourage you to do, let me turn this off. If you'd hit the lights, please. Thanks. What I encourage you to do is not encourage you, I insist that you do. You need to start with your excuse me, your flow chart, as it were. Okay, so you know what pages you want to add. Then on just a simple sheet of paper with a pen or pencil, what you need to do is, for each one, you need to get the content, and if you feel comfortable doing it in Photoshop or Illustrator, that's okay too. So lay out your page size, 800 by 600, and start to block it out and say, okay, I'm going to have buttons over here, or they're going to be round buttons, or however it's going to be. I'm going to have some links down here. I'm going to have a headline up here, Notice that the layout for a lot of these is pretty boring. You go from website to website, and there are slight variations. Headline's always at the top because that's the first thing that everybody reads. The navigation can vary. It can go from the left. It can go underneath here, and sometimes people will put it to the right. I do not recommend that you put your navigation buttons at the bottom because depending on the monitor size, it could cover up that. If it's just the additional links, then it's not a problem. Okay? Having your navigation buttons to the right can also be a problem depending on how you lay out your document, and we'll talk about that the other day. But this is the left and the top are your safest locations because your web or your browser window is scalable, isn't it? When you click on the lower right-hand corner and drag, you can make this bigger or it can be smaller. But so the left and the top are consistent, they don't change. The location of the right and the bottom, they do change what is visible. Yep. I'm going to when I do that on Tuesday, we'll probably come back and I'll have designed a little banner or a little thing, and we'll insert each one. But I recommend, I'm sort of going off a little bit, that you start and build something very simple like I've done and gradually make it more elaborate, more complex. If you try from the get-go to make something really elaborate, really complex, you may get bogged down in minutiae and details. And I would rather you have a simple website that's functional than something that's complicated and have only maybe one page and that maybe only part of it works. Does that make sense? Several years ago, I had a student that said, oh no, I'm going to do this website for a friend, and they want these really extravagant looking rollover buttons, you know, and this is, she wasn't doing it in Flash, she was working in Photoshop. And she spent all her time building the buttons and building this and building that. Before you know it, she had one really elegant page designed, and that was it. And that didn't even work properly. So if you can, I know that the look that I showed you here is not what you want, but if you can at least get your content in there and organized and clean and simple, then we can build upon that. And just as I had the links at the bottom of the page and then started to add the flash buttons at the top, those are a little bit more elegant, but I was able to add those later. I didn't have to add them right away. Does that make sense? And now I can change the layout, and I can change, I can begin to build. But what you do need to do is you need to build the content. You need to get content. You have to put it somewhere. And you need to think about that so that when you have a page layout, you know, oh, I mean, I really only have 300 by 250 or something for an image here. I can't use a big image. It just won't work. It will give you, if you want to work in Illustrator or Photoshop, it might be better because then you can select the image and you know relative to everything else, the file size, you know the image size so that you can place it. But even if you want to work with a sheet of paper, that will work too. And for each page, you need to block it out very loosely as to how you want to lay out your page eventually and what content's going to go in there. Because if you try to build as you go, it sort of looks like you've built as you go. Every page sort of looks similar, but they look more different than they look the same. Question? Okay.
Would you later repeat how to put the image in it?
How to put the image in there?
Yes, I thought I could.
I can do that now. It's fine. Oh, I can start over again. You hit the lights again.
Can you go over how did you make a new file, that local file?
Okay, let's see, one thing at a time. Let me start with the image. And then we'll look at the local files and I'll add one from there. And there are any number of ways that you can add new files on the fly. So let me take this image and remove it. Okay. Place the cursor where you want the image to go. Then at the top here where it says images, see where my mouse is? Click there. And it should go to your root folder in your image folder. If it does not, then you need to direct it there. You need to go to wherever your root folder is, and then within your root folder you need to go to your image folder, and you should see whatever files are available for the web. Remember that they can only be JPEG, PNG, or GIF, and that's it. So I'll select the Duck Dunes JPEG, choose. I will add the alt tag. So this is a duck photo. And it inserts it. And when I select the image, again in the properties panel, it tells me how big it is. It's 14K. It tells me the width and the height, 300 by 250 pixels. It gives me the source. This is the location of it in my root folder, which is very important. Here's the alt tag. Tells me that I don't have a border. I can add a border if I want. Can also, as we did a moment ago, we can make it a link to another page. We can do all sorts of stuff to it. This allows you to compress or to scale it or to crop it. I don't recommend that you do that, even though it gives you the tools to do so, because I just think you have better control in Photoshop. And just by shrinking the image, by selecting this and shrinking it, it's still 14K. It doesn't reduce the file size, it reduces the physical size. Maybe for minor adjustments, that's okay, but for major adjustments, no. Now, does that answer your, okay. Now, the next question is how do you create new pages? You could do that from over here under local files. If I pull this tab off, like so, I can click here, and I can create File, New, or, as I did before, this little tab right here, Expand to show local and remote. And then what I did is that I looked at the sitemap. I want to see map and files. And then what I did is I right-clicked or control-clicked on the site folder, and I said New File. And here's my new untitled HTML document, or HTML. And then you can rename it. Now remember, this new one I created isn't linked to anything. It's in there, but it's not linked to anything. Okay. It's really important that you guys work at home and getting the content and laying things out and organizing it. And when you come in here, that if you still don't have an account with Tripod, you're going to be in horrible condition, later on. If you are having trouble uploading your splash or your home page and connecting to the website, again, that defeats the whole purpose. So that every step of the way, every class time, that as I do something that you catch up and you try to follow along. So far, it's really critical. Okay? That's all I wanted to cover for today. If you're wondering what your website what you want to do for your website, or look, surf the internet. Look at other similar. If you're a photographer, look at other photographers' websites. If look under sample websites for dogs or cats or whatever it is. I don't know. Personal websites. When you select here where it says This is your map. It says map only or map and files when you hold down on the button. And I like map and files.
No, I mean, where you have the code above it.
Oh, over here, if we look in here, this is design, this is split. So you see the HTML and your final product, and this is just code. I mean, there are people who are programmers who know HTML inside and out, and they will just write it. They won't even bother to look at the visual. They just type it out. That's not me, clearly. But what you do have to do, and I encourage you to look at the split screen, is that you'll see from time to time, pay attention to what's in there. Look at how, it's framed, how the code works. Then if something doesn't work, you can see, oh, there's a little bit of extra code here, or it's missing something here, or this is where it's goofed up. I mean, I've never had a class in HTML, but I know enough to fix it. Just by looking at it and comparing it to other stuff and knowing that this is what makes it work. Okay? I should have this video up by late tonight. Late tonight. The other ones are up. They should be. The last two that I did for this. Actually, there was 3, but 1 got goofed. And I repeated most of it. So it should be. Test it while you're here and see if it works for you.